and then we turn that in for grant purposes. So one's required by state law, 5018, and the other one's required by federal law, and that's 5057.
Okay, and at this time, we have public comments on here. Public questions and comments may take place at this time. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a public comment form with the date, topic addressing, name, and address, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Do we have any? Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And unless there's any discussion or questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the parental involvement hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, at this time, we will open the student fees hearing. And for this one, we are looking at policy 5015, and we'll turn this over to Dr. McDonald for the presentation.
Thank you. Student fees policy is, again, something that you review annually, and that you are to receive an update on the student fees and the waivers for those student fees. According to policy 5045, I did highlight some things on page 1, and my highlighted section of that policy, the district policy, just says the district is permitted to charge student fees for activities or to require students to provide specialized equipment and attire for certain purposes. And all of those are outlined within the policy. The waiver itself is on page 506 of that policy. And it simply states that students and or families that, qualify for free and reduced lunches shall be provided a fee waiver or be provided the necessary materials or equipment without charge. And according to that policy, given a spreadsheet in regards to student fee waivers that was presented to the board. And you can see within those different activity accounts, the beginning balances of those accounts that fall under the student fees, the waivers that were a part of those, the receipts for the year, the expenditures for the year, and then the transfers within that activity fund. And then you have the totals that are clear to the right there, in regards to the student fee waivers and the student fee policy. I have also attached all of the account balances within the link system of the district for the year that match those totals that are on that spreadsheet. So with that, I would take any questions that I can answer in regards to the student fee waivers.
Thank you. If there are no questions from the board, we will move on to public comments here. Again, public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a public comment form with the date, topic addressing, name, and address, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Do we have any? Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the student fees hearing.
A second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned on the student fees hearing. And now calling to order the July 14th, 2025 Board of Education regular meeting. Thank you all for attending the regular meeting of the board. I would like to remind you that school board meetings in Nebraska are meetings held in public, not public meetings. During the public comment section, the public may address the board on agenda items and other miscellaneous topics. All right, Sheila, can we get roll call, please?
Angela Blasey. Justin Thompson. Joanne Lynn Green. Emily Garrick.
Present.
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Skip Alton.
Present.
And our mission statement to start us off this evening, North Platte Public Schools is a destination school district and community that embraces innovative opportunities and distinguished programs to create highly competitive advantages for all students, instilling the canteen spirit in an evolving world. The canteen spirit embodies generosity, selflessness, and unwavering support through service, pride, collaboration, and grit. The Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted here in the boardroom. At this time, I would now entertain a motion to approve the publication of the July 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
Second.
Notices of Board of Education meetings and hearings are placed in the North Platte Telegraph and the North Platte Bulletin. The agenda is available online at www.nppsd.org 4 days prior to each regular meeting of the North Platte Board of Education. Sheila, can we get roll call on that? Aye.
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 Motion passes. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the July 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
I move to approve the agenda for the July 14th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education.
I second.
Roll call.
Aye. Emily Garrett.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. A real quick announcement before we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, just so everyone is aware, we are not operating on our normal internet network right now, and we may experience some slower response times than usual. So if you notice anybody rifling through papers or even pulling up an agenda on their cell phone to read their notes, that is what's going on. So otherwise, we'll be fine. If you would please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for our report from the foundation, we will welcome Terry.
Good evening. A pretty short report this evening for us. We are having a good summer in the foundation office. We did mark the launch of Summer Enrichment, which has been a partnership between the district and the foundation to offer K through 12 offerings this summer. K2 filled up within that first week, which was really exciting. So we've been talking, teaching and learning and I about how to expand that next year and what does that look like. We appreciate the buildings and the teachers that have stepped forward to do that. We've been able to use the homework club funds to be able to pay the teachers and to order supplies for them. So be watching for updates and more information on that. So it's been kind of fun. And the foundation is gearing up for their Bulldog Weekend. Friday, the 25th, doors open at 6:30 at venue 304 for Evening of Excellence. We'll be honoring 3 wonderful distinguished alumni from the high school, and of course, raising funds for students. So be watching for that Quatego to be unleashed on Wednesday. There are opportunities to win a trip to Hawaii if you so choose. So very, very fun stuff. People really stepped up. We really appreciate all the sponsors. And then, of course, the excitement continues on Saturday morning out at Lake Maloney at 9 a.m. for a tea time to do the 5th annual Bulldog Classic. So if you're a golfer, come out and join us. And if not, come out and get a burrito with the Pacers. So that is kind of my update. Any questions for me? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, public comments. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with a date, topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting. Sheila, do we have any? Okay. On to our consent agenda. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as an. A second.
Okay, on tonight's consent agenda, we have item 9.1, approve the minutes of the June 9th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education. 9.2, approve the minutes of the June 26th, 2025 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting. 9.3, approve the teaching contract of Peyton Kavaman, effective for the 2025-2026 school year. And 9.4, approval of financial claims and reports, which were audited this month by Angela and Joanne. So we'll start with, if you guys have a recommendation on those financial claims and reports, the board would hear those now.
I went through them and they were fine. I do have a problem and think we should discuss using grant funds and where we use them.
What would be your recommendation on approving the claims tonight
Yeah, I say we should approve them. I just
Okay.
feel that that should be a
for a
discussion.
future
that we-
discussion?
Mhm.
Okay. Noted. Joanne, what would be your recommendation?
I would recommend that we approve. I wanted to thank Dr. McDonald since this was his first monthly audit with us, and also thank Janelle because she had to do double the work to answer some of the questions where Dr. McDonald is new. So really appreciated the work that they both put in.
Any comments, discussion, or questions from the board before we vote on this? Okay. I did just want to comment on our minutes. I thought Sheila did a really great job this month on concise but very thorough minutes. So I know that meeting, the last one was especially hard to sum up probably, and so I appreciate that. All right, so the motion on the table is to approve the financial claims and reports as presented. Sheila, roll call, please. Aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, on to our reports and discussion items for the evening. The first one that we have will be Mrs. Johnson for the special education report.
Do you have my slide back? Nope, it's okay. Yeah, it's in a different place. Okay. Do you want me to just present? Typically, that's what we've been doing. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna give you. No, that's okay. So I'm gonna give you a little snapshot on special education. I have a little agenda here, but don't be alarmed. It's only 14 slides. I just like my agendas. Okay, so let me move this for you here. All right, this is for the upcoming year. We actually have 50 certified licensed staff, and that's a birth through 21. So again, I know you've heard me say that we serve babies, so birth through 21. And then our needs are based off of families, infants, toddlers, and then also school age. So I want to start off with celebrations because I don't know, that's the exciting stuff that's happening in the SPED department you want to know about. I think probably one of the most proud that we are in the SPED department right now is that we retained 48 of the 50 staff members this year. Wow. Like that is awesome. We are doing amazing work in the SPED department and they want to be part of our team, and they are just amazing, amazing humans. The two that did leave, one of them was a retirement, and then one did resign. She wanted to move closer to family. Another kind of main celebration are IEP goals. So when we write goals for individual students and or IFSP goals, which is for our babies birth to 3, we also like to progress monitor, collect data, and then we report back to parents. And so for the last 3 years, this is going to be my 4th year within the district. We've really been focused on individualizing our goals and collecting data to see where students are and then reporting them back to parents. So I always say it's not like it's a Valentine, but it's concrete data to say, hey, you are comprehending at a 3rd grade level 75%. And so then we have concrete baseline data for students to grow from there. Another celebration is PLCs. So the district has created the time and the space for PLCs and for teams to get together. And so the SPED department is the special education department is the same. We've created that time and space. We've also have created agendas and expectations. So those are some of the celebrations that we have. I have more celebrations, so kind of digging into the data. There are more celebrations than this, but these are the ones I've kind of narrowed it down. So this is in regard to special education. So in regard to students and special education, our graduation rate is 85% of students in special education graduating. The next one is percent of 5-year-olds with IEPs enrolled in an early childhood program and receiving services, special education services within that setting. And so that's 100%. The state, the average is 80. So that's pretty amazing as well. The next one is percentage of preschoolers are growing in socially emotional learning. So that's 75%, where the state average is 62%. And then the next one is a big one. The directors are going to laugh that it's on here because they're really tired of me saying and talking about this one. But this is for meeting the deadlines for an evaluation, an initial evaluation. So if as a team, the MTSS team at a school district or at a school building decides that a student needs to be evaluated for special education, we have timelines that we have to meet. The state checks on those because I have to obviously report all of those things to the state. So we were at 100% this year, which means we did not have any late initial evaluations, which is amazing. So that's why I put it on there. And so then we have had the privilege of being monitored by NDE this year in both Part C and Part B. Which is usually doesn't happen. Okay, so I'll explain a little bit of that later. But what I did is our teams in Part C and Part B have been working really hard. And even during the summer, we've met with Part C. We actually meet weekly during the summer because services for our birth to 3-year-olds, they don't stop. We keep serving them throughout the summer. So our staff members are working during the summer. And so we really have narrowed down from NDE's feedback 3 big rocks for each area. Part C, as you can tell there, I'm not going to read them to you, but they're really based on transitioning from Part C, so our 3-year-olds into preschool setting, and then child outcomes, which are really family goals, and then co-visits and team meetings. So those are our kind of 3 big rocks that we're going to focus on in Part C, which again, Part C is birth to 3. Part B is preschool through 21 years. And so we were also monitored by NDE in that area. And our 3 kind of big rocks are accommodations. So really connecting areas of need for students in regard to accommodations. And then also fidelity checks. So we are fidelity check is basically it's a checklist. It's like a walkthrough, and we just make sure that we're teaching what we're supposed to be teaching. And so we're really concentrating on 2 areas. In the elementary, it's on a reading intervention. It's direct instruction of reading. And then in the middle school and high school, we're really tuned into inclusive practices. And so I have some information there on both of those, and then also IEP goals. And then I just wanted to provide, I think this is beneficial, just kind of where our services and who's providing them. So I'm briefly going to touch on this. So like the top one, resource special education teachers, we actually are provided, we hired our own North Platte Public Schools. We also have some virtual resource teachers. And so those are through BlazerWorks. Occupational therapy, we have 2.7 occupational therapy. Speech pathology, we actually have 3 services there, so you can tell where everything, where we get those services. And then same thing with deaf ed, audiology, vision, who supports us in all of those items, so we can provide everything we need for our students of North Platte Public Schools. We also have our autism team, which I think that has been functioning for a very long time. I think actually they have been doing that for over 15 years. And so our autism team really goes out and supports schools. So not everyone has the same, maybe if they need it in addition to. So if they're struggling with a student that has autism and they need more ideas and they need some other options, we'll bring in staff members and they can come and support them. So it's not just a one and done, but it's an ongoing process. Early Development Network and Planning Region Team, those are two are kind of connected. Those are for our birth to three, 3-year-olds. We have a special education coordinator, and then we also have improving learning for children with disabilities. That's through the Department of Education. I do briefly want to just give you a little snapshot of the differences between Part C and Part B. I know I use that language pretty quickly, and that's the world I live in, but Part C is our littles, birth to 3, Part B is 3 to 21, and it actually looks pretty different, even though it's under the same umbrella. So when you think of Part C, it really is early intervention. We're intervening, and that's actually, it's a co-lead between NDE and DHHS. And it really is a family plan. And it has 2 different rules. Okay. And those, it's age, so it's birth through August 31st of a 3-year-old's birthday. Part B is NDE oversight, and it's Rule 51, and it's ages 3 to 21. And that plan is really individual based, where Part C is family based. Any questions on that? So something else that you may not know is when it comes to Part C, our birth to 3, Nebraska is divided up into planning region teams. And as you can tell there, many of our planning region teams are kind of like outlined within ESUs. So take, for instance, planning region team 10. They're housed out of ESU 10. North Platte, I think it's a positive, it's actually its own planning region team. And there's not very many districts that are its own planning region team, but we are. So like Grand Island is its own planning region team, but many schools are part of a whole, as you can tell up there. That's why I wanted to put that colored diagram there for you. So as you can tell, can you see? Yep, we're right here. This is North Platte. And so we're surrounded by another PRT. This is just how you're referred to Part C and to Part B. So anyone, I remind you, because I know some of you have heard me say this before, anyone can actually make a referral to Part C. Anyone, a neighbor, a doctor, anyone can make a referral, which is kind of cool because it's early intervention. We want to intervene early. Part C is voluntary. So parents and guardians can end that at any time. And then this is the difference, just a little bit of IFSP and IEP. So an IFSP is really a family plan. So when we go into homes, because we serve kids and families in Part C in the natural environment. So we go into homes for all of the meetings, we go into homes to serve the family, and it really is family based. Where the IEP, even at the age of 3, when they move into preschool, it really is school based. So we want to make that the natural environment of school instead of the home. I did mention this, Part C is continuous, so it's year round, it's voluntary. Part B, we're really talking about the student plan. It's reviewed annually. Any questions about an IFSP or an IEP? And then we transition both. So Part C, we really do work on transitioning to preschool. And there is exact steps that we need to maintain within that plan, within the IFSP plan. And then in Part B, we actually start secondary transition at the age of 14. So we already start planning for what that's going to look like after graduation. And we start that at 14. I forgot the question side. Yeah.
Question on that transition process.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody that has received services and then they reach that whatever the August cutoff of their third birthday year is, and need to transition potentially to Part B, how does that work if that's not a student that is attending our preschool program? Or, what does that transition
It's a great question.
logistically look like?
Yeah, so any child who is 3 and turns 3 before August 31st has to transition to an IEP by August 31st. So even if we have a student that turns 3 on August 29th, they have to transition by August 31st. And then we work with the team. So let's say we're working with a private school, then we invite that teacher into and that principal. So it becomes a little bit larger meeting, but we want to make that transition easier. Head Start is another one we work with. So we work with a lot of entities. So we just invite those preschool teachers and administrators. Yeah, great question. Which brings me to something else you might not know. So obviously we serve students who are homeschooled, students who attend other schools. So we're part of all of those meetings. So Jeff Allen and I actually attend, it was Kirsten Bowman. We attend all of those meetings. So if there's an IEP at St. Pat's, someone from North Platte Public has to attend those meetings because we're in charge of the services. So we attend all of our Redeemer. So between Kirsten and Jeff and I, we attend those meetings.
So I had a question in relation to sixpence, and you probably already kind of answered it, but do you have any partnerships, or is there overlap of services at all there, or how
That's
are
a-
you working with?
That's a great question. Actually, Sixpence has referred to our program and our program has referred to Sixpence. And actually our EDN service coordinators, so our birth to 3 staff and the Sixpence staff actually meet weekly.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I mean, I just think it's really good that people get to hear all of the things that we do in the special ed department. I think majority of the public have no idea how involved the school district is from birth on. And all of these programs, and then like with the parochial schools, we have to help with them as well and so forth. I think that's why I really like presentations like this, because it gets it out to the public that we are doing all of these things. So thank you.
Yeah, they're all of our kids.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's why we're in it.
And I just want to comment too, I love your celebrations. Especially you guys are doing phenomenal compared to state averages and everything. So yeah, you deserve to celebrate.
Well, we have an amazing staff and they're great to work with. I'm excited to see them. I've missed them, even though they might not yet be ready to come back. I'm very excited for them to come back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. we will-
Emily, before we get on to the
Sure.
discussions, would you answer a question for me?
Yeah.
Last week, what was it? 2.5 weeks ago when we had the meeting of the committee of the whole, you used your son as an example with the boots and the coat in the handbook.
Mhm.
What elementary school is your son going to attend?
Skip, I don't know that that's pertinent to an item that's on our agenda. But if you'd like to have that conversation with me after the meeting, I'd be happy to do that. Okay. Our monthly financial reports with Dr. McDonald. I will turn the time over to you here.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here at North Platte Public Schools. I'm excited about the opportunity to serve and look forward to the school year. And I just also want to thank Mr. Stuart Simpson for his transition into this role. He's been very helpful and will continue to be a benefit for me moving forward. So I appreciate his time as well. So as far as the monthly financial report, what you have in front of you, I've kind of given you an overview of the district as a whole in regards to the budget with the general fund. And I hope that it provides you with some necessary information as you look at it from the beginning of the budgetary process throughout the school year. And within this form, you can see the beginning balance, where the district started at to begin the school year, over on the left-hand column there. And then it goes month by month in regards to receipts and expenditures. It gives you kind of an average there towards the bottom of those columns. It gives you what the cash on hand currently is moving forward for the district. And then as you move across the spreadsheet, it provides in the center there, it talks about percentage of budget. That's percentage of budget that is spent to date based on the overall budget of expenditures for the year. And as you move down to the middle there, you can see that we're currently 82.6% spent on the year. And then each month it breaks it down to see if we're over or under budget. So the green, as in September, was 0.8% basically under budget. Then you had a few months there where the district was over budget. And then we get into March, April, May, and June, and we're currently under budget for those months moving forward. And then if you go clear to the right, it talks about your payroll and payables, and you can see what those are per month, and then your monthly averages there towards the bottom of that sheet. So I like to give this just because I think it gives an overview of where you are, and that those funds and those dollars that are presented actually do match the monthly accounts within the rest of the monthly financial report. So do you have any questions in regards to just this sheet?
I really like seeing that. I like your presentation of this information to see there are months where we go over, but then that clearly swings back the other way where we're under budget. So that's
Right.
really helpful to see that big picture of that.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you for including that.
And if you have suggestions or other things, please let me know. So.
In July and August are us just kind of projections, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, so when we get into the budget discussion of the board meetings, we provided some estimates there on that in regards to what we've seen over the last, I think it was three years. And so that at least give you a projection to say, okay, this is what we're anticipating at this particular point in time. Yeah. The next sheet was just the enrollment data for the district ending June 30th of 2025. We had 3,426 students, kindergarten through 12th grade. And then it kind of gives a breakdown in total of each building. And then, excuse me, at the bottom, it adds in preschool with Buffalo to give you a total of 3,549 students currently. And obviously we're registering kids each and every day. So I anticipate that number to go up as school approaches. And then your monthly financial, the treasurer's report there talks about the general fund. Within the month, you can see the deposits and disbursements there as it pertains to the month, your total disbursements, and then what your net change is there. And then your reserves moving forward would then match the first spreadsheet that I gave you. And then it goes through each of the other funds there as well, as far as depreciation, employee benefit, activity, cafeteria, bond, building, qualified capital purpose undertaking, and then your cooperative fund as well, if you are using those funds. I will say the depreciation fund, we are currently working through that account as it relates to the 23-24 receipts and expenditures, what those accounts look like, what they were earmarked for, and then matching those up as we move forward through the 24-25 school year. And as that and how that relates to the budget when we get into the budget discussions as well. So that may be something that I will be able to provide moving forward. And then obviously the all of the account codes, all of the receipts and expenditures for each account, excuse me, is within that monthly report as well. So all of those match the treasurer's report moving forward. So if you have any questions, I would entertain those now.
No, I told you earlier how I really like this. I think it's very easy to read and it's very understandable. So I appreciate that because we aren't accountants up here. So that really, really works well for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I might request, I like this report also. I think it's easy for us to kind of understand and gauge where we are. Is there a way, I know not to talk about how Stuart did things, but there was one chart that he presented that I thought was really helpful to see, and it was where we kind of compared year to year each month. I don't know what he called that chart. Do you remember, Dr. Rhodes? Do you know which one I'm talking about? The bar?
The line graph.
Yeah.
Was it cash flow? That
Yes,
cash
there
flow
we go.
chart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that was really good for us to see like big picture because there are some months where that ebbs and flows quite a bit and to be able to go back and see like the trend of, okay, this is kind of normal to see in this month and we're anticipating it to jump this month or to dip. I think that's really helpful, but I really appreciated this information. So thank you for putting that together. Does anyone have questions for him on any of this information?
It is good.
I was curious, there's a bunch of numbers, but there's nothing by it saying what they are on the, I don't know, an example would be like page 8. I mean, it didn't show that it was in a expenditure, it's just the revenue and balance, but it doesn't say anything, so what's those numbers?
Page 8. Okay.
They're throughout the report, but page 8 was what I happen to be on.
I'm sorry, I have page 1 of 2 and page 1 of 3 here. So you're just going by page 8 of the,
Oh, yeah.
Are you on the
21?
financial report or
Yeah,
the
consumer.
budget document?
It's the financial.
The
report.
Yeah.
okay. So counting the,
oh, I see.
so it would be the activity and depreciation page. Yeah, there we
Oh,
go.
and there's no numbers that go with
Sorry,
that.
the
So,
page number is confusing.
yeah, so there wouldn't be, those are codes that aren't used. So it's zeroed across there. Is that what you're looking at? Is that
What?
zero balances across?
No, there's like numbers like 66,300. 14,872.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll find that and I can get that to you. I think they probably just didn't have the description in the code there of
Oh,
what
okay.
that was. So yeah, I get that's no problem. I can get that.
Good observation. All right, anyone else? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your time on that. And I think it's probably going to be a bit of a learning curve for all of us in learning your reporting methods but so far this seems pretty simple for us to go through. So I appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to the budget discussion for tonight. So again, I will turn this back over to Dr. McDonald and we'll kind of review where we're at in the budget process.
So yeah, again, thank you. I provided just a document here in regards to just some historical data. And basically what I really want to give you is just an opportunity to have a discussion in regards to the budget. I know you've had some discussion as you've looked at the budget overall with Mr. Simpson. He's provided some estimates as we move forward here. Within this budget discussion, I just want to preface that a lot of what you've talked about to date are just estimates because, really the real numbers aren't coming out until after August 20th. And so we're not going to really know the real growth, what the spending limit is, budget authority, all of those different things that come with the budget until after that particular point in time. So to give you some hard data is probably unwise at this particular point in time. But I do want to provide you with some information in regards to some upcoming discussions that you may want to have within the committee of the whole and whatever else that you may be considering. The first one that was provided was just a property tax history. And I just wanted to be able to show you on that what property taxes, what were budgeted within any of those given years, what was actually received, and then the percentage of what was received. And then it kind of gives you the averages at the bottom, so that you could see that over the course of, I think that was 15 years by. 15 or 14 years. And so it gives you an average. And as you can see, clear to the right are the percentage differences and what hasn't been receipted to the district in any given year. Those are the shortfalls there. So, as you look at that, I always feel like it's nice to be within that 98.5 range percentage wise in regards to receipts to the district in any given year. That would give you a very good indicator of where you're at, how much that your cash reserve on hand, and what you have to work with within your budget. So as you can see, those percentages, there are a few years where that 98.5% rang true, but there are several years where it did not. And so that I want you to know that that's kind of affecting what's going on in regards to receipts and cash reserve at the moment within this particular system that we have with public education, with our taxing system throughout the state. So any questions on?
Can you, just so
Tax-
everyone is aware,
Yep.
can you kind of explain the reasoning of that percentage difference there? Why there's a discrepancy between what's budgeted and what's received?
Well, that again, that's just on the the tax process. They would just be delinquent taxes that weren't received.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think we all know that, but sometimes other people that are tuning in or paying attention don't quite realize that not all of that is in our control.
Right. No, it's not in our control. It's
Yeah.
it's the reality of what's going on.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And there's potential that when some of those dollars are received, we hope at some point that they would then be paid to the district, which I think, is that what we saw happen?
Yeah,
We saw
when
that with the
we get our tax statement, typically it will itemize everything from the year that those taxes were coming from. So I think we're kind of alarmed from the research that Dr. McDonald has done is we have not seen over the last 3 to 4 years back taxes coming in. And so, we're working with the county treasurer on that as well to try and kind of figure out what's going on. But, quite honestly, when you look at that total number over the course of 13 or 14 years, I think you can kind of rationalize where we're at as a school district in terms of cash on hand or cash reserve. When you're building a budget, thinking you're going to get 98%. And in the 2 districts I worked with previously, it was pretty universal that you collected 98% of those taxes during that tax year. And so, I think that's kind of where we're at. We're working from behind, trying to figure this out. And a big thank you to Dr. McDonald as he has done his research and really wants to be able to provide you some really hard numbers. And that's the reason that we're not providing any new proposals at this point, because we just don't know revenue wise where we're going to be for sure.
Any other questions on that? Not, I'll move to the next sheet. And the next sheet gives you a 5-year general fund total receipt versus expenditure. And you can see where the district was from 2021 all the way through currently of 24-25. You can see in 2021 where the beginning balance was. And what I want to draw your attention to is as you move through 2021 and you come down to August, you can see the receipts there. And typically in the month of August, you wouldn't have those numbers. And what happened there is that county treasurer balance came in during that month. And so it was receipted. In the county treasurer balance for the 21-22 school year was actually receipted in 2021, according to the balance sheets. Okay, so typically, in August, as you move across on average, you're going to be in that 1.5 range. So the beginning balance is a little bit skewed when you go to the 21-22 school year Because typically that September balance is going to be higher than what it shows there. So I want you to at least understand what the difference was there when you look across here. So in reality, what I'm saying is if the receipts hadn't come in August and you actually utilize them in September, your beginning balance in 21, 22 would have reflected a negative number there as well, probably as far as moving across in regards to the history of the last 5 years. So then you can kind of go down and see where the district has been in regards to the cash on hand as you ebb and flow throughout the last 5 years with the receipts and expenditures. I think when we were looking, I think that 2021, 21, 22, that was kind of the years that we were starting to receive more of the federal dollars because of ESSERs within the pandemic years. So that was the jump in those budgetary expenditures when you look at total dollars there as well. And then the last sheet that I have is just a 24, 25 estimate in regards to the year end. And if you, what I did was you've already seen through June. Then I took July and August and provided you with estimates in regards to receipts and expenditures just based on averages over the last few years. And so that's kind of what we're anticipating. Could be a little bit low, maybe a little bit high. But as you can see, what we're anticipating with cash on hand at the end of the year is, give or take, 400,000, maybe either way, would be kind of where we're going to fall in my estimate. Now, again, won't know this until we get through July particularly, and then with August, you can maybe make a better determination in regards to those numbers. So, but that's just an estimate so that you can kind of see. And then if you go to the middle of the page where it talks about percent of budget, you can see in August that we will be 0.2% under, which means that we are really dollar for dollar right now, budgetarily speaking. And that's why it's so hard to build cash reserve when you look at those numbers. So with that, and as you digest that a little bit, open for discussion. Dr. Rhodes.
Yeah, the only thing I would mention when you look at this, Dr. McDonald got his July and August averages over 3 to 5 years. And so typically those 2 months in terms of revenue brought in about 3 million, right around in there. And expenditures have been in the $8 to $9 million range for those 2 months. So, as he said, your expenditures might come in a little bit lower during those months, might get a little bit more revenue. But I would say this, I think these are a good starting point for you to look at. They are not hard numbers, but certainly where our cash position was at the beginning of the school year, I do believe our cash position moving into 25, 26 is going to be significantly better than where we were at. The other thing I would remind you, this does not include the balance that's left at the treasurer's office. And typically the district has about $7 to $8 million left in terms of what was taxed for that previous year. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean we're going to collect all that, but nonetheless, there will be some funds that come in that are generally fairly significant in September. It's usually a pretty good tax receipt month for us. So certainly, I think trending in the right direction.
Does anyone have any questions for him on this? Sorry, I wanted to give everyone a little bit to digest. There's a lot of information. All right. Well, thank you for providing this. I appreciate that. And when should we, just kind of so the board knows, planning wise, moving forward with budget discussion? So we've kind of left it at looking at, a couple different options for budget. When should we anticipate continuing and picking that discussion back up, kind of where we left off?
Yeah, I think that if you, depending on the meetings, if you want to continue to do that at the committee of the whole, you have several opportunities here moving forward, before the August meeting on August 20th. Obviously, September is a big month to get everything approved. And so that would be up to the board and Dr. Rhodes in regards to the discussions you want to have.
Yeah, I think to really make good decisions around the budget, it has to be after August 20th. So, it's up to this group in terms of whether you want to retreat that or do you want to do it at the August committee of the whole and make sure that we allow enough time for discussion there. So I think we've got some time to think through that a little bit.
Perfect. So that's kind of the timeline you'd feel comfortable feeling like we have the necessary information to
Oh, yeah.
fill in the blanks.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we'll bring that back up for discussion on if we feel like we need to do something else. It might be worth, since we are kind of maybe missing out on a couple discussion opportunities right now, just not having that information. If board members feel like we need a more targeted conversation, I think we could look at a retreat at that point, but we'll just kind of hold tight for right now with where we've left things.
And we
And
have a little over 2 weeks between the committee of the whole in August and the September meeting, so
Mhm.
maybe sneak something in there.
yeah, or we can try to keep that agenda a little bit lighter as well. So, okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, our next item here is a discussion item on policy 3036. We've already discussed this quite a bit. The reason that it's brought back here as a discussion item rather than as an action item is we really have a lot of ideas and strong opinions on kind of all sides of this and everywhere across the spectrum. So we did discuss this pretty in depth at our committee of the whole meeting. Mr. Altig had to leave that meeting a little bit early, and I know he had some strong thoughts on this. So I wanted to make sure that we did bring it back so there's an opportunity to discuss it a little bit further. So at this time, I will kind of just provide a little context, and then we'll open that up for any discussion the board wishes to have. So initially, this policy was brought back up as part of our regular review process. So we're going through a process right now, doing policies section by section. There was some language in this policy, one that we're making changes to by recommendation of KSB. So that's one of the changes here. And then there was some additional language, basically language in here suggesting that the board has some authority to revoke or grant purchasing card access. And so the question was brought up at that point of, do we have a formal way to know what that looks like? Dr. Rhodes shared that he will be submitting a report to the state, August, correct? As part of the audit. So that is something that, is put together in that regard. Had a couple of questions about if that's something the board already has access to, and really it is. If you wanted to go through and line item out when we're doing credit card receipt claims audit every month, that is something that we have. So really just the request to have something formalized of whether it be a report or a list that's shared with board members, just so we're kind of aware of who has cards, how many there are, that type of thing. So that's where the context of this being brought up comes from. I know that there are feelings on all sides of this, so I'm just going to open it up for discussion, and I would love to hear what you all think.
Before we get into that part, on authorized purchases, the last sentence says the maximum amount that may be charged in a single day is $250.
Correct.
We exceed that quite a bit of the time. When you have teams that go somewhere and we feed them or overnight, depending on what it is. So I think we should increase that part or eliminate that. Get rid of the maximum amount because it's overseen. The sentence before talks about approved by the board or the superintendent and designee, which mainly that would be Dr. McDonald's office that would do that. I think if people see that 250, if they took it literally, we could have some issues with that.
So could you explain because I know there's a process and I'm not sure if Dr.
Yeah, that was my
McDonald
question.
is
So if you
familiar.
remember, if you go back to the, I believe it was the May committee of the whole meeting, we were at Jefferson Elementary. We included in your packet when we were going over the first half of the 3000s, we included 3 documents that followed policy 3036. One of those documents is our district purchasing guidelines that all employees have to sign. And that goes through the process if you are going to spend more than $250. It talks about the travel piece, and what you're supposed to use for travel, fuel. It's fairly well, all 3 documents are fairly in depth, and I'll get those emailed back out to you so you can look through them. I think either way, I'm fine if it stays in there because I think our guidelines and procedures really talk about that spending limit and what you need to do to increase it. Or I'm fine if you want to take it out. I think we're good as a district either way.
Do you think it would be helpful, Dr. Rhodes, if this policy supported what we're actually doing in process with those procedures and maybe referenced those for, if there is a circumstance where that needed to be exceeded, that there is a process that we do for that?
Yeah, we can certainly reference those within the policies and get those attached in there.
I think that might be worth doing because I see where your concern is, Skip, with having that hard number in there. And there may be times that there would be a reason to
Actually,
exceed
I
that.
think at that low number, it probably would be exceeded quite a bit of the time on certain things that we do, when we take a full basketball team, boys and girls, to Lincoln.
Well, and I guess that's maybe an interesting part of the discussion is we all know that prices have gone up and, on a lot of things. And so we've made adjustments to different things. I mean, is this number an outdated number? Or is it still, I guess there are some questions that could be asked there.
Well, and that's a good point, because just when we did the audit, we had seen that some of our teachers or admin or whatever had gone to a conference and they had gone out to eat. We were like, how many people were there? And it's expensive. It really is. So, yeah, that might be something.
So,
Dr.
Yep.
Rhodes, when someone goes out of town, the business office, they do approve ahead of time to raise that amount, correct?
absolutely, and that is right in those guidelines as well. Yeah, out of town travel is certainly one of the guidelines that's listed, and they work specifically with the business or finance office to get approval. Correct. Yeah.
But I think what Emily said, I think adding a sentence there afterwards that
To clarify that.
clarify that,
Yeah.
I think if somebody looked at this at whole and said, your policy says 250 and here's a $600 bill that you had, how did that happen?
Right.
So I think if there was a sentence that clarified that, I think that would really help that part of it.
Yeah. And
That can work.
so that 250, I assume, Dr. Rhodes, that's not just like we've said it, that's the rule, but that's built into the cards, correct? Like if somebody were to try to charge something that was $312, their
Yeah.
card would it decline, or is that kind of built in? as
Depending
a
on
card?
whose card it is, for instance, the superintendent's office card that Sheila uses. If it exceeds, hers is a little bit higher based on what the expenditure needs to be. And even sometimes, having said that, we'll need to raise the limit on that one as well. So I would imagine that the finance office card is the same way. But when it comes to those personal cards, there's a pretty hard limit on those. And so, yes.
That's I went back and looked that is the original number in the policy. It's been 250 for a long time.
I personally don't have any issue with keeping that number as it is, as long as we kind of have some language that supports those extenuating circumstances. Just because I think even if we assume good intent on the part of 100% of our staff, which I would certainly like to do, I think that there is still potential when you have as many cards as we do for a mistake to be made. And not that that mistake wouldn't be made right at the time that we do an audit or at the time it's submitted. But, you know, if you take $250 times 94 cards, that's a potential of $23,500 to be charged in a day. Now, I cannot think of a circumstance where 94 people accidentally charge some things to a credit card they shouldn't, but that math is pretty large when you look at it in that way. So my recommendation would be that we keep the number the same, but clarify that language and how to go about raising that limit if you need to. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I guess one thing too that could be considered is if at some point the business office had feedback where it seems like they're having to do a lot more with those like everyone is having to go through a process to get their balance changed, then that might be something worth revisiting at some point in the future if, you know.
Okay. So I think we've got some good suggestions there on clarifying that language in that section. Are there any other sections of language that anyone would like to discuss in this policy?
No, the one that I objected to isn't here. So I just had a question about the.
Yeah, and that's, we attached the original policy. So your highlighted policy, the one that is being reviewed, that was presented in May, and we talked a little bit about in June, was under the authorized user paragraph. What was added in there was the superintendent or his or her designee will annually provide the Board of Education a list of all North Platte Public Schools employees authorized to use a district purchasing card. So that's a change from the policy we currently have on record. And then under documentation, that last paragraph, this was a required change from KSB. Employees, instead of seeking reimbursement for employees making a purchasing card purchase, shall submit an itemized report. So it doesn't matter, seeking reimbursement. If you're going to use a district card, you're going to turn in your receipt or your invoice. So those were the changes we talked about. That is not reflected on the attached policy. So, and I guess I would just say, as we're talking about it, I think we do have a large number of cards. And so I've kind of worked with our cabinet team a little bit to start striking through the document that we have. And so we've already, I've got to talk to my high school folks because the high school has a lot of cards. And mainly they're in activities. And so specific activities have a card. I think that's for efficiency purposes. And I think it's a lot easier to go through that US Bank statement and know that that was high school football. And so I think there is some good reason for having the number we have at the high school. But otherwise, if you look across the board, each elementary has one card. Adams had a few more, so we've struck through those. The individual district administrators, we're striking through ours, and it's going to be held with our administrative assistants. Most of us don't use a district card anyway, so we don't need those extra cards. And so we're gonna bring that number way down. It's not going to be even close to 94, but I do need to visit with Mr. McCoy and Mr. Spitansky. But I would recommend to the board, think a little bit about when you're going through that US Bank statement. And if it just was 4 cards, to try and distinguish what that what that payment was for, we wouldn't have as good oversight as what we have. I think particularly at the secondary level.
I think it would be almost impossible because take this fall, for example, you could have the football team going to Omaha, you could have the boys tennis team going to Scottsbluff, you could have girls golf going to Norfolk, you could have boys and girls cross country going to Hastings. Did I miss one? But that and winter is worse because we have more activities that come into play. So just four there would be unworkable really. And I have always liked when we've done the audit that you can look and it'll say like Washington School, or it'll say Pacers, speech, band, the band's the one I was missing there, who go places this fall too. Yeah, I knew there was a fifth.
But those cards are only active during their season is what I have been told. So
Let us look into that.
Okay.
I believe that is correct, but I would like to make sure I
Verify.
can give you
okay.
the correct answer.
Volleyball, right? Thank you.
Yeah, I think
See,
that
that's-
makes a little bit of a difference too. Just if there are kit cards that are inactive, then, you know, they're not, even though there are cards out there, they're probably, I would hope in the activities office when not in season. So,
Yeah, because even if, I know that sports have to need things off season to help prepare for that, but that can be something that would go through the activities office.
It's probably not a last minute
Yeah.
need. It's probably a planned making
Well,
an order for something.
One of the questions that I had during the audit was our number of maintenance cards. Just on the statement itself, there were so many, and then I found out it was even more. So I think that number could be looked into too.
Yeah, I talked about the high school, but the other one is Mr. Ayers and I will be sitting down. We have fuel cards that are at maintenance, and then we also have travel cards that are what you would consider fleet cards. And so we get a little bit better price for fuel if we use those fleet cards, and we get a little bit better kickback. So maintenance has those. And then there's probably 4 or 5 of the maintenance individuals that have cards as well. And we kind of talked about that. You know, somebody like Dan Sims that does a lot with, say, sprinklers over summer, instead of going back to maintenance to check out a card, my assumption is, and I have not visited with Mr. Ayers yet, but my assumption is then Dan can just run to Ace and get 2 sprinkler heads. And, you know, it's part of that is time efficiency too, that you're not having to run back because a lot of times you don't know exactly. And if you have a kind of a limited number of cards, you don't know if there's going to be one available, and it could be really inefficient in terms of that. So that would be one example. I would imagine our foreman who kind of takes care of the grounds probably has an individual as well for fuel and some things like that. Maybe repairs to mowers as they break down during the, you know, when we're mowing one of the campuses or something to that degree. But yeah, you're right. Maintenance is the other one that we're taking a look at.
Yeah, I think all of that is good for us to consider, and really just looking at, I'm not suggesting we take all P cards away. I'm just thinking we need to use discretion and make sure that we're really doing our due diligence to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And I just think that that's one small piece of that puzzle that is worth looking at. Just to share a little bit about kind of what I've seen other districts doing and my thoughts on that. I do agree that seeing those credit card statements kind of sectioned out is helpful, but I also, you know, would challenge that a little bit with if we were using purchase orders for similar types of purchases, it would also be, I mean, I would assume that would be data that we would be able to see kind of sectioned out. I've had a couple of questions over the last couple of years just about amounts of certain types of purchases. And it was really hard to get specific answers on those because they had gone through credit cards rather than being like documented separately. And so it was kind of hard to, you know, for instance, one of the questions I asked after I'm sure we all saw the press release about Asante Schools was, how much are we spending on gift cards for incentives, just to make sure that, we're not running a risk of being in that kind of situation. And it was hard to quantify that number because they had been purchased with P cards, I think. So that's the only thing that I see kind of on the opposite end of that could be more helpful in reviewing things. So just something to consider. The language that we're recommending in policy is actually pretty standard. I reviewed a large number of Nebraska school district policies. I've had a couple of long car rides here recently, so that was very conducive to reading policy. And this language would probably put us kind of in the middle as far as our oversight on P cards. There are a couple of schools that have very vague language and not a lot of oversight from a policy standpoint. There are some that take it quite a bit further, actually, than having language like that. There are some that limit directly in their policy who can have a P card, and they line item it out by basically job title. There was one district, and I'm not advocating for this, but there was one district that required their purchase card users to go through training and take a test before they were issued a P card. And that is a Nebraska school that is doing that. So I think that this would put us at a point where it's not creating necessarily an extra burden for Dr. Rhodes to provide this information, because it's readily available information he'll be providing anyways. It does kind of build in a little bit of a level to ask questions, but not so much of, we're putting into policy exactly who can have a card. So that's kind of my thought, is that it kind of puts us in the middle a little bit on our amount of oversight. But again, I would certainly welcome any others' thoughts and comments on that. All right. We will probably bring that policy back for approval at our next regular board meeting. So if you have any thoughts in between now and then, feel free to send any additional language request over, and we can provide them in our next board meeting packet. Okay, on to our next item here. We have our student handbook. So we'll welcome Mrs. Busher. Just a review, we did review these handbooks at our committee of the whole meeting here just a couple of weeks ago. And there were some questions, some recommended changes. So Mrs. Busher is bringing back the student handbook so we can discuss and ask any questions. And then if the board wishes, we can take action on that tonight under our action items.
Okay, I think I emailed everybody back. I reviewed the minutes from the last meeting and made the changes that you guys asked for. I did consult with some of our principals because they're the ones enforcing this. Just kind of, I always try to get their input. It's really important to me that they feel heard in this. So I did bounce a few things off of them. I think I've communicated with everybody that's reached out to me. So if anybody else has any questions, I did add policy links. I didn't if the policy was already in there in its entirety, but for those that maybe the policy had more detail, I did link that. If there was a form, bullying form, a withdrawal form, I did add a link to where that is on our web page, so they can just click on that and access that fairly easily. I like the way we have it right now. I think it'll be easier next year for me to do a red line of just what's out. I'll highlight in yellow what's new, and then that way you guys can just go and look for the changes and you don't have to review such a large document. So, but now that we have authority to edit it, it'll make that easier. So.
Yes, I finally had enough time to go through it, and I do appreciate all the changes that you made. It looks really good.
Yeah, I agree. I went through it. I forget how long it took me on Saturday to go through it, but yeah, I think it's very well done.
It's a process, but it's a good process. It makes you understand.
Yeah, next year will be much easier.
It will be easier, and it should be easier for you guys as well, just to have a document where you can just look for the red, look for the yellow, and then you know what's new and what we're taking out. So.
Yeah, I think that will be great. And I really appreciate just the format of this and the links, like it's much easier to navigate that way, which I think is really our goal in a handbook, is not to confuse people. It's to provide clarity on situations. So when it's easy to navigate, I think that really in and of itself probably resolves issues before any of us ever hear of them if they can find the answer to their question.
Yes.
So, yes. All right. Any other questions that filtered through from our last meeting?
Thank you for all your work, Brandy. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it, Brandy. Just so that the board knows before we get to it as an action item, while we're on it as a discussion item, I did want to make mention, I had a couple board members that just felt like going through the handbooks without having red line version was a lot last time. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, I personally feel comfortable when we get to an action item, someone making that motion, and I would feel comfortable approving them.
I agree.
If anybody has any reservations, you certainly are welcome to make a motion to table it. So if that does happen, the way that works is we would have a motion on the table, a second to approve. We would open it up for discussion. If anybody were to want to table something, you are no longer allowed to discuss after the motion to table is on the
That's
table.
right.
So you would discuss, you would table a second, we'd vote on that, et cetera. So just wanted to clarify that because I knew we had talked about that. I personally feel fine moving forward with it. So thank you, Brandy, for putting so much work and time into that. Really appreciate it. All right, on a similar theme, we now have our employee handbook with Mr. Mills. So same thing, we reviewed this at our committee of the whole meeting a couple of weeks ago. I know that there were some formatting notes emailed over and some follow-up questions and all kinds of things. So Mr. Mills, if you'll just kind of update us on where we're at with that.
Yeah, thank you. I can't help but notice this great new backdrop, though.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. Looks awesome. Thanks for everybody involved in that. Yeah, Emily and I had a lot of discussion while she was driving. I don't know where you were going, but she had a lot of time. And so we went back and forth and I got everything in the handbook. with
To
all-
clarify, I wasn't driving, I was
I
riding.
didn't. I was worried.
I don't need the safe drivers out there coming after me.
So we went back and forth and got all the updates, with all the policies linked now, everything is linked in there. Names changed with the associate superintendent, and all of the other ones that we talked about at the committee of the whole. So I haven't heard from anybody else, so I got all the other updates. So if there's any other updates that anybody missed or wanted to talk about, certainly open to making those updates and changes. And then we can do the same thing next year as discussed and redline and highlight. And we can even put this one, this is a Google Docs, we could put it into that other format as well. That's not a problem.
Any questions or comments?
No,
I think the other thing that we had talked about that I think makes a lot of sense is kind of a uniform format. So we're going to take kind of this school year to take this document and format it like the student handbook so that they're similar in terms of their format. That's going to take some time to do. So we'll kind of work on that. So that's ready for the 26-27 school year. And of course, it'll be redlined like the student handbook then, so you'll know what those suggested or recommended changes.
so we won't have to go page by page.
Correct.
I think we would all appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Dr. Rhodes, because that was something I forgot to mention that we had also talked about too, just that consistency in our documents out
Yep.
there and really training people to know how to navigate our documents and recognize, well, this is what our headings look like. This is what our bullet points look like.
Have it all uniform.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just creating an easy process. So I
I
think
go
that would be
back far
great.
enough that where we got a copy of it every single year,
Yep. Printed copy.
printed
Yep.
copy.
Yep.
That we had to sign off on. Yep. About that.
And you read it all.
I did. I did.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that update. Similarly on that one, we can certainly have further discussion on it when we get to it as an action item. If anyone thinks of anything, I would feel comfortable approving it. If anyone disagrees with that, you're sure welcome to make a motion to table. All right, on to our action items. So the first one here, I would at this time entertain a motion for reimbursement of seminar expenses to Board President Emily Garrick, myself.
I'll make a motion to reimburse Emily Garrick for seminar expenses.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Abstain. Motion passes. At this time, I would also entertain a motion to reimburse seminar expenses to Board Secretary Cindy O'Connor.
I move to reimburse of seminar expenses to Board Secretary Cindy O'Connor.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Motion passes. Okay, our next action item for the evening is to approve revisions to policy 3024 booster clubs and PTO. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve those revisions.
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to policy 3024, the booster clubs and PTO.
A second.
All right, just quick context here. If anyone has any further questions, we have discussed this one multiple times. We did just add some clarifying language in there, which you'll see in the highlighted version attached to the board meeting packet. This language came from the recommendation of Joanne, which I thought really kind of clarified. We all seemed to be confused the first time we read this policy. There was also some language in there that actually had been removed from the policy that came recommended to us by our attorneys. And so this just further clarifies that. Is there any discussion or questions on this? Okay, awesome. Roll call, Sheila.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, next, I would entertain a motion to approve revisions to policy 3026, our handbook policy.
I move to approve revisions to policy 3026 on the handbooks.
I second.
Context here, we're just adding some language, part of this as recommendation by KSB to basically provide just the amended part of handbook to the public or the individuals that it would affect if those amendments are made. And then we just added some language in there that if changes are made other than directory level changes to the handbook after it's been approved, that it'll just be brought back to the board. Any discussion or questions on that? Okay, roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. I will now entertain a motion to reaffirm policy 5045, student fees.
I make a motion to reaffirm policy 5045, student fees.
I second.
Okay, and this one, there is no change in here from when we last looked at this. Dr. Rhodes, do you want to provide just some context for the rationale?
Yeah, if you remember, this is from the Elementary and Secondary Schools Act. It's a requirement to receive your Title I grant funding. And so we do parent participation meetings at all our Title I buildings. We keep the minutes from those meetings. We create a school parent compact as part of that, and that's all uploaded and sent to ND as part of the grant requirement. So requirement of federal law.
Okay, any discussion or questions? All right, roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion passes. I will now entertain a motion to reaffirm policy 5018, parent involvement in education.
I move to reaffirm policy 5018, parent involvement in education.
Second.
Okay, similar rationale on this one. Dr. Rhodes, is there anything else that you would like to share on that?
My apologies. I gave you the rationale for 5057. I can't even read our agenda apparently. So what you voted on for 5045 is a state requirement with student fees. So we have to go through each line item that we charge fees. And then we also have to give you the total number of dollars that we collect from those categories, and then also the total number of waivers that we provide through free and reduced lunch. In terms of 5018, again, if you remember, we approved revisions to this parental involvement policy that came from this last legislative session, and it includes survey information and some timelines to get that communication out to parents, as well as timeline for them to exempt their child from those surveys. So 5018 is a requirement of state law.
Excellent. Any questions or discussion? All right, roll call. Aye.
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 Motion passes. At this time, I will now entertain a motion to reaffirm policy 5057, District Title I Parent and Family Engagement Policy.
I'll make a motion to reaffirm policy 5057, District Title I Parent and Family Engagement Policy.
Second.
Okay, so we've heard the rationale on this one. Is there anything else you want to share on this, or anybody have any questions on this policy reaffirmation?
No, again, you said that these things have been discussed and
Yes.
read and so forth. So it's not like we're just flipping through things to get it done.
Yes.
Which we are, but I mean, we have discussed.
Not flippantly, we've
No,
discussed
no,
these.
yes.
Absolutely. We're just required to reaffirm. Okay, roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay. On to our handbooks. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2025-2026 student handbook as presented.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 student handbook as presented.
Second.
You're gonna get one soon.
I'll be signed.
Good. Okay, you got one. Good job. Way to stay in the game.
Give me the next.
Okay, obviously, we've discussed this at length. We've already had Mrs. Busher up here. Does anybody have any further questions or discussion?
Just again, thank you to Brandy for all the hard work you did with this. It's really appreciated.
All right, roll call.
Aye.
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 And I will now entertain a motion to approve the 2025-2026 employee handbook as presented.
Motion to approve 2025-2026 employee handbook.
Second.
Just calm down, please.
Okay, any further discussion or questions on this? Mr. Mills looks comfortable, but we can make him come back up if we have to.
Again, thank you, Kevin.
All right, excellent. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Okay, on our last item here, our future board calendar, there are a couple of things coming up that I just want to make sure you've got on your radar. So we do have as many board members present as possible. First of all, tomorrow I will be on the radio. After lots of trades, it is finally my turn. Our committee of the whole meeting will be at McDonald. I think on our original schedule, it was at, where was that? Lake. So that is a change, but it will be at McDonald Elementary. There are some leadership workshops coming up. So I am looking at attending the July 29th workshop with NASB and Kearney. There's also one in Gearing if that date works better for anybody. If anyone else is also looking at going to Kearney, let me know. We have those forms through that Sheila can send you, and it was really easy to fill it out and send it back over, and then I'm
I
happy
thought
to
it
sign
was
off.
simple on the.
Yeah.
I thought it was simple, very simple.
Yep,
Yeah.
clean and simple. So just reach out to her if you would like that form, and then just let me know if you're planning to attend. That one is a pretty low cost. It's just an evening. So I would encourage any board members that want to attend. I think that would be a good one. Then coming up, we have a busy week. There's a new teacher welcome on August 5th. And that's in here, correct? Yep. Okay, at 8 o'clock that morning. So if you're able to come that morning to welcome our new teachers. Then on the evening or afternoon technically of August 7th, there is my brain is not working right now. KSB and our county will be providing an administrative legal perspectives training, professional development. That's the word I was looking for. So if you're able to make that, do you want individual board members to just email you, Dr. Rhodes? and
Yeah,
let you-
I think some of you have, but if you would RSVP to me, so I kind of have an idea of numbers, that would be great. That'll be our whole ADCO group, so building principals and district administrators. It's really interesting. We had brought Bobby Truey and Rebecca Harling out, I think 2 years ago. And they did a session with administrators and they really do a nice job of presenting together. And one talks about the county perspective in terms of, accountability, responsibility and legal aspects for mainly employees, in this case, administrators. And then, of course, Bobby talks about at that state level, what those, some of those laws require. So they do a great job together.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. And then we have our back to school event, August 8th at the high school at 7:45 that morning. So again,
Very quickly, August 7th and 8th, I will not be here. That is my summer NASB Legislative Committee meeting.
okay.
So I am gone both the 7th and the 8th.
Claims next month is Joanne and myself. And then if you'll jump down, one thing I wanted to make sure that you had on your calendars now, just because it really is a great opportunity, is that area membership meeting. It's here in North Platte on September 3rd. So I think that's always great to get as many board members as we can to
I think
that.
we were all there last year.
I think there's been a couple years we
Yeah.
were all there. So it's just a great opportunity to have conversations with other board members, to kind of get an update as the school year's starting. I always think it's
just a
informational.
note, we should be receiving an award this year too, because of the training that the board went to in the last
Yeah.
year. So,
Sweet.
so it would be good if we're all there for that.
That would be great. We can get our annual picture together holding our award. That'd be awesome.
Put it on the website.
Okay, excellent. Any questions on any of that? All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one comment. So do we need to have the budget hearing on the calendar? Cause I am not seeing that. And I didn't even really think about that until
Good
earlier.
question.
Yeah,
but-
we'll get that on. That most likely will be end of August. If you remember, one of the things we did talk about was having that budget hearing, and this obviously predates Dr. McDonald's time with the district, but we talked about doing that on the same evening as the committee of the whole. We'll just have to see how much is going on, what the retreat looks like, and then we'll get those hearings done.
And when is the date that we need to have that, the budget approval by the board complete by? Do you know, is it before September 1st or? Okay.
Yep.
So we have some time.
Yep, we have time.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you for bringing that up, Joanne. Okay, now I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Thanks. Thank you for getting that.
Okay.